Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker. All right, everyone, welcome to episode 92 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts, Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random garbage.
To get us started, here are this week's top news highlights.
Uniqlo operator to close all stores in Russia as war continues.
Bank of Japan in dilemma as Ukraine crisis raises specter of price hikes.
Yamagata city to circle dog poop on street with chalk to shame owners.
This week in Japan. Alright, our first story. Uniqlo operator to close all stores in Russia as war continues.
Kyodo News has reported that Japanese firm Fast Retailing, operator of the Uniqlo casual clothing chain, said on March 10th it will temporarily close all 50 of its stores in Russia, joining other global companies in suspending business operations as the Ukraine conflict continues.
Fast Retailing's decision comes after the firm was met with a barrage of criticism on social media for its policy to keep its Russian stores open, which it made clear just 2 days earlier on March 8th.
Which was hilarious, actually. March 8th, Uniqlo comes out of nowhere saying, we're going to keep open in Russia because Russian people still need to buy our stuff. 2 days later, grand closing.
Wow.
Earlier this month, Uniqlo's fast fashion competitors Zara and H&M decided to stop operations in Russia.
Uniqlo, which opened its first store in Russia in 2010, cited operational challenges and the worsening of the conflict situation as factors behind the suspension in a statement, which also stated, "It has become clear to us that we can no longer proceed."
In the statement, Fast Retailing condemned all forms of aggression that violate human rights and threaten individuals' lives.
So this seems to be the narrative, right, across all businesses leaving Russia right now, banks included.
And even those who continue to try to do business in Russia find it very difficult because you can't move money, there are sanctions. It's pretty much damn impossible.
Right. All right, and up next, Bank of Japan in dilemma as Ukraine crisis raises specter of price hikes.
Kyodo News has also reported that painful price hikes are hurting the wallets of consumers in Japan, with consumers paying more for everything from gasoline and electricity to rice balls, burgers, and even diapers.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine has added to the gloom for companies which have already been passing on surging raw material costs to consumers. Crude oil, natural gas, wheat, and other commodities have jumped, ramping up inflationary pressures in Japan, known for its long experience with deflation.
Economists say that consumer price inflation looks set to accelerate in the coming months towards 2% and may exceed the target set by the Bank of Japan.
Damn, so the yen's getting weaker and commodity prices are going to go up? Uh-oh's right. The bad news is that the recent bout of inflation may not be the kind of price rises that the Japanese central bank would have wanted to see, because it has been and will likely be led by higher commodity prices, exposing the vulnerability of Japan, the world's third largest economy, which relies heavily on energy imports.
The Bank of Japan, or BOJ, which has been keeping its ultra easy policy intact, is in a bind while consumers feel the cost of living getting higher and a lack of wage growth hurting spending ability.
With the economic isolation of Russia, one of the world's major oil producers, raising supply concerns, West Texas Intermediate crude oil futures briefly rose past $130 per barrel to an over 13-year high, and another benchmark, Brent crude oil, surged to a 14-year high around $140 per barrel in early March. So when we say a 13-year high, this is also including Lehman shock times and the huge inflationary period before that, right? So
yeah, 13 years ago was literally the worst high oil prices that we had in, I think it was around 2008, 2009. And back then, gas in Tokyo was over 200 yen a liter.
Yeah, globally, it was nuts everywhere. Of course, in the States, kuruma shakai, car society, right? Everyone's freaking out right now.
Yeah, my favorite rapper, DJ Paul, posted on his Instagram, anyone want to buy a Rolls Royce? And he had a picture of gas prices.
Yeah. I think even like the West Coast is getting hit the hardest first, right?
It is. Actually, while in America, LA has, I think, the highest gas prices in the United States, it's usually cheaper than it is in Japan. However, right now, LA's gas prices are higher than Tokyo's.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Which makes me think, but I'm sure those high gas prices are headed this way too, so.
Yeah. I'm most worried, obviously, about the plane tickets, Hopefully those don't double or triple in price.
Well, your plane ticket from Tokyo to Orlando, the base charge is $1,500, and then the fuel surcharge is $15,000. Would you like to proceed, sir?
Yikes. Knock on wood, that's not the future.
The flare-up in tensions between Russia and Ukraine has also boosted grain prices, as both of these nations are major producers. Even before the Russian attack in late February, wheat prices had surged, and the average price of imported wheat sold by the Japanese government to milling companies jumped to a 14-year high, raising the prospect of rises in bread, noodle, and pasta prices.
Hideo Kumano, executive chief economist at the Daiichi Life Research Institute, said that if West Texas Intermediate crude oil futures average $120 a barrel this year, a Japanese household with 2 or more people would have to pay 68,000 yen, that's about $590 more a year for fuel, electricity, and gas, while the high wheat price would translate into a 2,000 yen increase a year in spending.
So it's only a matter of time until the Oji-sans declare war on West Texas.
And the government gives us another stimulus.
That would be nice. Can we still declare war on West Texas?
I don't see why not, We get the COVID stimulus, we get the Russian-Ukraine stimulus, and we get to go to war with West Texas.
That's like a triple whammy.
Yeah.
Speaking of whammies, it's like a game show. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has acknowledged the gravity of impact on households and companies, saying the COVID-19 pandemic fallout and the Russia-Ukraine crisis serve as a double whammy.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening to this, us included, is like, we were finally getting over COVID, travel is starting to open back up, and bam, World War III. Not really World War III yet, but it's in the back of everyone's head. So Kishida told a recent parliamentary session, quote, "To cope with rising prices, we will deploy every possible policy measure to protect people's livelihoods by enabling companies to pass on costs and creating an environment for them to raise wages for workers."
Commodity-led inflation would work as a negative for the Japanese economy, whose recovery from the COVID-19 malaise remains fragile, with the shadow of stagflation, or slow economic growth, and inflation taking place at the same time. That's like a triple whammy.
Yeah. Daiichi Life's Kumano said, "It is ironic that the BOJ's monetary easing has helped weaken the yen and boosted import prices, and the government is now giving subsidies to mitigate the impact of higher energy prices."
With a year left in his current term to April 2023, the Bank of Japan's governor, Kuroda, would have his work cut out for him to convince consumers feeling the pinch from higher living costs that keeping powerful monetary easing is the right path.
Kuroda said to Parliament, quote, "Cost-push inflation would cut into corporate profits and reduce real income without wage hikes, leaving a negative impact on the economy. So achieving the 2% target in a sustainable and stable way will not be possible. Up next, Yamagata City to circle dog poop on street with chalk to shame owners.
The Mainichi has reported that Yamagata City in northern Japan will launch a new measure in April to prevent dog owners from leaving their dog's poop on the streets by drawing a circle around the poop with yellow chalk and writing the date and time of the discovery in a bid to improve their manners.
The initiative, called Operation Yellow Chalk, is simple. Letting dog owners know that people are watching them, letting their dogs poop go unscooped. This measure has been introduced in other communities across Japan and is apparently effective in making owners pick up their dog's poop.
According to the Yamagata municipal government, this strategy was first started in the Kyoto prefecture city of Uji in January 2016 and gathered attention as an easy but effective way to curb the problem of unscooped poop. The city of Yamagata is the torch leader in Yamagata prefecture to introduce this scheme.
Uji sounds like a nickname for like unko or something, you know? Which is poop, right?
Maybe that's what they branded it.
I'm just thinking like, you know, Kansai Ben.
Make an unchi free Uji.
Exactly, something like that. The city government has taken measures to educate dog owners, such as distributing posters and flyers to neighborhood associations and other groups that consulted the city with dog poop related concerns. The municipal government decided to introduce the new strategy because there have been many cases where no solution was achieved, and Tanaka has stepped in poop every day for the past 30 days and he's sick of it.
Detailed information on the initiative has been released on the city government's website and elsewhere. Elsewhere? Where else? Those who wish to participate in Operation Yellow Chalk need to submit a document with information including where and when they intend to serve as volunteer poop police, and the municipal government will dole out pieces of yellow chalk for their efforts.
Yamagata City Mayor Takahiro Sato commented, "We know that dog owners will recognize there are people troubled by unscooped poop, and that their attitudes will change."
Hip-hop artist and billionaire Kanye West also commented, quote, "You know, I made a song about this. It's called Lift Yourself. I hope these poop police will listen to it while they go around harassing dog owners."
Kanye's encouraging lyrics go something like,
"Poop diddy scoop, scoop diddy whoop, whoop dee scoop dee poop, poop diddy scoop dee whoop, whoopity scoop whoop poop, poop diddy scoop whoop, poop, poop, scoop diddy whoop, whoopity scoop, whoop diddy scoop dee poop."
In the words of the famous artist Kanye West. This is a real song by Kanye West, by the way.
It's called Lift Yourself.
Yeah. Why not just take a picture of the poop?
Because the idea is not to document the poop, but rather to shame the owners of the dogs who left the poop go unscooped. So by circling the location of the poop in yellow chalk and writing out the date and time that the poop perpetration occurred, the idea is that dog owners who tend to use the same route to walk their dogs will see this yellow chalk outline.
And the next time they're walking, they might
notice that the location of their poop has been outlined in yellow chalk by some angry Oji-san.
Who probably lives at the house where...
And is probably watching them at that very moment.
Okay.
With a piece of yellow chalk in their hand.
Ready to come out.
And a cigarette in the other.
Oh man, this is the most Japanese thing ever. You know, no confrontation. He probably watches them do the poop and not do the scoop, and then walks out, you know, waits for him to pass by, and then does the yellow chalk. And...
No. First he puts on his headphones. He gets his iPod. He gets Lift Yourself on, and then listening to those sick bars, he outlines the poop in yellow chalk.
That would make more sense. Yeah. You know, in the States, though, this is an issue. The neighborhood my parents live in, there's some dog owners that don't pick up the poop. And
you ever thought about sending them some chalk?
I wonder if chalk would be effective too in the States. I imagine in the States it would just be like a picture with the geolocation, and like, I don't know, if you live really close to a bunch of, geotagged, unscooped poop centers or areas, you could maybe get like a notification on your phone. There's been a large amount of poop unscooped next to your house. Is this your doing? Something like that.
Hey Siri, turn off these notifications. I'm sorry, but your poop is apparently going unscooped, and I cannot do this. Would you like to listen to Lift Yourself by Kanye West?
This is something that would probably like become law, like in California or Texas. Like seriously,
I could just imagine in Texas, like unscooped poop, they outline it in chalk, and next to the outline, instead of writing the date and doing all that business, there's like just 3 used shotgun shells, like just kind of put around the circle.
Oh my god.
We didn't shoot you this time, but next time we're gonna shoot you.
Oh gosh.
We're not gonna shoot the dog. We like dogs, but we're gonna shoot you.
Oh man. But hey, a good way to handle this issue. Nobody likes to step in a pile of poop while they're walking, for sure, especially on the sidewalk.
Especially in Yamagata City, apparently.
Yeah, and Uji. All right, and coming up next on Tokyo Panic Room, we're going to talk about whether Japan is on the brink of joining the Great Resignation that has affected companies around the world.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave.
The Japan Times recently interviewed a number of people who recently left their jobs, citing challenges and new perspectives on life brought about by the pandemic, which could signal Japan becoming the latest country to become part of a global phenomenon first dubbed the Great Resignation and later the Great Reshuffle, in which millions of workers began to leave their jobs en masse as pandemic-battered economies gradually regained their footing.
In November 2021, a record 3% of the workforce in the United States, or nearly 4.5 million people, quit their jobs.
In Australia, according to new research from National Australia Bank, 20% of workers changed their jobs last year, and 25% are currently considering leaving their workplace.
India's IT industry also saw a record-breaking resignation date in 2021, which has triggered a hiring overdrive among tech firms.
Some workers are burned out and need time off. Others leave in pursuit of more fulfilling, flexible roles, taking advantage of staffing shortages.
While the movement still appears to be in its nascent stages in Japan, for many across the world, the pandemic has offered a moment of reckoning. Lockdowns, quarantines, social distancing, and other restrictions imposed on movement meant there was plenty of time to reflect on individual career paths and work-life balance.
However, even if Japan's Great Resignation is going to happen, it isn't happening now. According to the Communications Ministry, only 4.3% of the working population changed jobs in 2021, down 0.5% from the previous year and marking the lowest figure since comparable records became available in 2002.
Takuya Hoshino, an economist at the Daiichi Life Research Institute, said, "The number of job hoppers typically increases when the economy is strong and decreases when it isn't, and that's what we're seeing now. What's interesting, however, is how the number of those who want to change jobs is growing."
Hoshino also said that people who want to change jobs are mainly those who work at companies that adopted working remotely relatively quickly, indicating that the new work style has inspired many to search for new positions.
So I don't have to go to the same place every day at 7 a.m. and stay there until 11 p.m.? Demographics also play a large role. The rapidly graying and declining population, coupled with a low birth rate, means Japan is bracing for a desperate lack of workers looking ahead. the shortfall is already manifesting itself in the nursing care and IT sectors.
The health ministry predicts Japan will need another 690,000 long-term care workers by 2040 to look after the ballooning number of elderly people. The trade ministry, meanwhile, estimated in 2019 that Japan lacked around 220,000 tech workers in 2018, with the figure expected to climb to as high as 790,000 by 2030.
That's really soon. That's just 8 years away. Wow.
It's going to suck.
Or it's going to be a huge opportunity for some tech entrepreneurs. So if there is a silver lining to all this, however, it could be how the big shift toward working remotely is redefining the relationship between job obligations and family.
Bringing in more women and elevating their status in the labor force has been a policy priority for past Japanese administrations intent on shoring up the stagnant economy. Former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, for example, was a leading proponent of the goal, dubbing his initiative Womenomics.
But while the number of women with occupations has increased over the past decade, now accounting for roughly 45% of the entire workforce, or 29.8 million people, many are part-timers, partially the result of spousal tax deductions and entrenched cultural expectations that see men as the primary breadwinners.
So this spousal tax deduction is actually a huge problem in Japan because basically you don't have to pay your own welfare tax, which is a large deduction, if you are a dependent who makes less than 1.3 million yen a year. So you see a lot of part-timers, for instance, housewives, who are working part-time jobs and coming in just below that 1.3 million a year mark so that their tax burden will not increase.
And this causes like a negative feedback loop because a lot of companies know this and they purposely change like the contract and the working conditions to make it so people are like, maybe someone doesn't want those conditions, but that's the only kind of like funnel they have set up. So you can't really like, grow at certain companies, or you're basically working below poverty, right?
Exactly. And so like, if we put this in easier to understand terms, if you want to go below this 1.3 million yen annual limit, you basically want to make like 105,000 yen a month. And the damage that this deduction makes, this is a rough estimation I made earlier, you would actually have to make more than 200,000 yen a month in order to overcome the bite of that deduction.
And you know what? So 200,000 plus around 100,000, right? So now we're at 300,000 sanju mon. That figure is actually pretty rare for most Japanese workers, right? The average Japanese salary or starting salary and salary that a lot of Japanese people are kept at is nijumon or nijugomon, 200,000 or 250,000. So basically your options are you have to stay below the poverty. They won't let you work enough to earn a certain amount, or you have to jump above the 300,000 mark, which is really difficult for a lot of people here.
Exactly. And so in strict economic terms, your average part-time job will get you 1,000 an hour, let's say. So if you work that job full time, you'd make 160,000 in a month.
Right.
However, if you did that as a dependent, you would go over that 1.3 million. And so working full time at a part-time job, you would be essentially penalized for working more.
Yeah.
By the tax agency.
Gosh, it's crazy.
But you think, well, this tax system is stupid. It's hurting the workforce, so get rid of it. However, getting rid of it means getting rid of it. And that deduction increases the spending power of the average Japanese household, where you have a lot of households still where you have only one primary income earner. And so getting rid of that system means all of those people get less money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But their dependent can work more.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't sound very attractive, does it?
No. During Japan's economic boom of the 1960s and 70s, millions of workers enjoyed the perks of lifetime employment and seniority-based pay hikes in exchange for their devotion to the company, which meant notoriously long working hours. But as the nation sank into the economic doldrums after the asset price bubble popped in the early 1990s, firms found they could no longer afford to maintain the rigid system and began streamlining and outsourcing work.
A survey by the Cabinet Secretariat suggests there are 4.6 million freelance workers nationwide as of 2020. The figure, however, could be much higher depending on how the demographic is defined. Staffing agency Lancers reports the number of freelancers, including company employees who moonlight, and other self-employed individuals, jumped to 15.7 million in 2021 from 10.6 million in 2020. That's like a 1.5 increase.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of Japanese friends right now that are doing the kakute shinkoku, which is, filing their personal taxes on top of the salary tax that they have, like, because maybe they were at a company and now they're being furloughed, so they picked up some part-time work. And most of these Japanese friends I have, they don't want to go back to the big megacorp anymore, right? They're looking at becoming a freelancer, even if it means less money in the short term. The added freedom and not having to abide by those very, very strict rules at the Japanese megacorps is very attractive.
Freedom!
For real.
Koji Yamazaki, a former engineer at Olympus, left his job in October 2020 and moved from Tokyo to the city of Ina in Nagano Prefecture. Now he makes a living as a subcontractor who works with 3 firms, 2 manufacturers, and a biotech venture.
That's the way to do it. Yamazaki currently makes roughly the same amount as he did when he was a full-time corporate employee. He spends his free time transforming an abandoned traditional dozo storehouse in the mountain village of Ogawa, around 2 hours north by car from where he lives, into a shared office and event space. His children also enjoy their new home and the abundance of nature and spacious parks.
Sounds like an improvement.
Definitely. Sounds like a Ghibli film. For real. It sounds like a fantasy, going from Tokyo to that.
Hayao Miyazaki is probably chain smoking and writing it right now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yamazaki said about his decision to leave the corporate world, quote, "I began rethinking my priorities and considering how I could restore my interest in work in a sustainable, stress-free environment. If the pandemic hadn't hit, I would have probably continued working at my old job. Now I'm doing what I want to do according to my own schedule. There's so much more freedom."
Amen to that. Parker, you and I have talked a lot about, having your own company, and the kind of mindset of being a consultant, or even for people that are making the transition initially, going from working at a mega corp to being a freelancer. And, with that transition comes a lot of different ways you have to think about life and money. But if you can achieve it, it's like, wow, it's awesome, right?
I always compare it. It's like leaving the Navy to become a pirate.
Interesting.
I mean, you think about it, you're in the Navy, your salary is guaranteed, you get to be on this big ship and you've got your mates and, you've got all these guns and you've got all the infrastructure, but it's structured. You got to do push-ups, it's very rigid.
Right.
Then you can become a pirate.
Well, what you're describing is in a lot of action movies, right? And even science fiction, like the mercenaries are always like ex-military, like ex-Federation troop, right? Like he's like notorious for killing like 20 guys with his bare hands and
Yeah, so all of these people leaving the corporate world to become freelancers are actually serial killers.
They've been brought up in the most stringent and difficult of corporate training. So I mean, when it comes time to like really be a freelancer and be their own boss, I'm sure 99% of these people are capable of doing it. It's just a matter of, can they make that leap?
And, there's a lot of Twitter discussions around this as well among the international community as people see, teaching English and doing a lot of the other sort of common jobs that foreigners are engaged in, especially in the early stages of their career in Japan. And they see the opportunity of going freelance, becoming a translator, maybe doing some sort of consulting work for one company or multiple companies. And there are a lot of opportunities out there. At the same time, if you want to be a pirate, you have to sail on the high seas. And of course, for people moving into freelance work or starting their own company, that means building new business relationships, oftentimes from zero.
So I just want to highlight one thing we talked about for anyone who's maybe thinking about a career change. The Trade Ministry estimated in 2019 that the nation, Japan, lacked 220,000 tech workers in 2018. The figure is expected to climb to 790,000 by 2030. That's 8 years. That's not long. If anybody wants to make a change, steady programming, steady digital marketing, do something tech related. You don't even have to be a programmer. Learn some kind of software, get good at it. Try to get like a part-time job, freelance job, maybe a full-time job for 6 months or a year. Doing that, bam, you can start your own freelance agency and be making good money here. I mean, just the lack of tech knowledge is incredible here in Japan.
And you don't really even need to be good at technology to get into tech. You just have to listen to those Silicon Valley podcasts, on repeat for about 2 months.
It's not a lie. If you can become good at selling it too, sorry, I cut you off, but if you can become the face of like selling that kind of tech, selling these new technologies, selling Japanese companies on the idea, hey, maybe we shouldn't be using, Microsoft Office 2003 and storing everything in static Excel documents. Maybe we could use Google Sheets instead. Bam! Your company could get a lot of money for a consulting gig doing that,
I've got the offer of the century. It's digital chalk. We will no longer have to distribute all of this yellow chalk to these angry Oji-sans. Instead, digital chalk. It digitally prints using 3D the outline around the dog poop. It even matches the shape of the poop.
I think Parker,
this is the future.
You've got another business waiting to be built right there.
And we're going to put it in the metaverse.
Ooh, there you go. But, to be realistic, like I talk to people here in Japan who maybe are in certain careers that they don't want to be and they're looking to transition. There's just so much in tech. And like you said, Parker, a lot of times when people hear about tech, they think coding, I have to learn how to code. That's not the case. There's so many other tech related jobs. And there's a huge demand here where in the West, it's so saturated. I mean, in the US, in Europe, everybody knows how to use Google Ads. Everybody's a digital marketer, first of all, like everybody. And then if you ask someone like, do you know how to do this in Python? They'll buy Udemy course, learn it in 3 days and come back and be like, yeah, I know how to do it now. You don't see that here in Japan at all. Japan is just so low tech right now, and the demand is insane. Guys, jump on it.
Ride the wave. Buy some Dogecoin. So, Aaron, do you think Japan is actually going to have this Great Resignation?
Yeah, so I think we're going to see more of a great reshuffle. I already have a lot of Japanese friends that are becoming independent freelancers. And yeah, they, in the short term, you're not going to make a lot of money, but making that jump is really important. And I think a lot of people understand that importance now, and especially with such a rigid structure in Japan. Anyone who's plugged in to how work works in other countries and has been in a Japanese company from anywhere to like 2, 5, 10 years. I mean, this is a great opportunity to to break that cycle, you know?
And buy more Dogecoin.
Yeah, and invest in Dogecoin and talk to Elon Musk on Twitter.
And go to the moon with Yusaku Maezawa.
What happened to that dating show? Wasn't he going to do like a dating show where he just finds a girl he's going to go with?
He just decided to go to the moon with his bros.
Oh, yeah. That did they didn't go yet.
No, they went.
Oh, they went already?
On a Russian spacecraft. And they came back.
They went already?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Shows how much I've been not paying attention to the news.
Yeah, they made a big deal about it.
Wow.
Conveniently before Russia kind of sort of had that reputation issue. I wonder what Yusaku Maezawa is talking about these days.
For real. Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.